Welcome to the Age of Awakening.
Please identify yourself. Enter.
Hey, Triple P Nation, welcome back to the podcast, where this week we're going to explore the tools and tactics and strategies to help you achieve personal and business mastery. And this week, I've got real estate investor Mike Morawski, who's got an absolute incredible story of a incredible rise in success and the crash of all crashes, both figuratively and literally, to the point it took him to prison, how he rebuilt, and how he's teaching other people through his misfortune, through his poor mistakes or poor choices, helping other people now and build real estate portfolios and passive income and a nest egg for their families and legacy for their families. It's really a quite fascinating and inspiring story you're going to want to check out. So, hey, by the way, Happy New Year. I know we're a couple of weeks in. I want to say for sure that I'm so grateful for each and every one of you that you take time out of your busy week to join me and to uplift your mindset, to learn a little bit more, to open your mindset to new concepts and ideas that's going to make your life better. Because look, we're all about empowering you mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. The Triple P life is about empowering your dreams, igniting your passion, and accelerating your prosperity. And it's my hope at this point, you've got your goals set out and laid out for this year, that you've got action plans and strategies in place that's going to help you achieve anything that your heart desires. But that's what it starts with, guys. Your desires. Your desires are your highest ambitions that drives you and moves you, that gets you up each and every morning, just ready to serve, being able to pursue your passion, being able to make a difference in life. Because that's truly when you're living your Triple P life. And I've been so grateful to be able to experience that, but not at first. If you're new to the show, welcome. By the way, my name is Dr. Jay LaGuardia, and I have failed so many times I can't even count. But similar to Mike, I've been able to get up, dust myself off, and to learn from my mistakes, be humble enough to reach out to people who are way smarter than me, and then learn from them, and then proceed to put into place in the action steps necessary to achieve the goals what were in line with my highest desires. And the fact is, I want you to understand that each and every one of you can do that. You don't need any special talents or gifts. And I would suggest that most of you already have very special talents and gifts already. So you're ahead of the curve. It just takes clarity of thought and focus to really dial in specifically what moves you and what excites you and what is it that you want to pursue in 2025. You might have heard me say recently, I believe we're at the precipice of an economic boom in many, many sectors. Are you prepared to take advantage of it? Are you expanding your mindset and your education necessary to understand where those opportunities exist and how you can benefit from it? Look, what makes the difference between people who experience significant wealth and abundance is not so much luck, although luck can play a role in it. It really has to do with our knowledge and our education and constantly striving to learn and to be better. And then looking when you are in the right headspace, in the right mind space, and you're vibing at the right level, your energy is good, opportunities begin to show up in your life. You can't even imagine where they came from. There's been so many times in my life that's been the case. It requires a synergy of thought, desire, energy, and vibe. And if you are congruent in those areas, the universe will bring you opportunities that can change your life. By the way, tomorrow, that's how quickly it can occur. So that's what I'm starting here with you today, this year. Make sure you're clear on your vision, clear on your desire. Make sure your energy is good in each and every day. That means you've got to invest each morning eating well, doing a little exercise, reading, open up your mindset, prayer, visualization, meditation. A little bit of investment in you can make sure you have the energy to accomplish each and every goal and make sure that you're vibing correctly throughout the day, that your energy levels stay high, And when things occur, because life happens, that you can pivot on an instant and vibe differently. You get that phone call that, your spouse was in a car accident. Hey, it's bad stuff, no question. But you know what? They're okay. They're doing right. We're going to vibe differently. We're going to go from concern to hope and optimism. And there's a countless different examples of that. So that's the key here. That's the key. My goal for you this year is incredible success in every area of your life. And we hope to partner in your journey to give you the tools necessary to make that become a reality. And look, if you have questions, as I always say, reach out to me. Email me, drj@PPPlife, drj@PPPlife.com, or follow us on social media. Of course, we're on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. Become a part of this journey, part of this family. Let us help you on your path, because together we can help you accomplish it a whole lot faster. Now, this week's success snack is, because I want to give you some tools, right? Is some simple real estate investment strategies for the beginner. Again, so many of you reach out to me and ask me, because it's a big part of my portfolio, my wealth portfolio. How do I do this? So I'm going to give you some really basic strategies to start with. So number one is, I want you to set clear goals. You need to determine what your investment objectives are. Are you looking to just create some passive income, or some long-term appreciation, or a combination of both? And then, of course, you need to define what your risk tolerance is. Okay. Number two is, start with education. You've got to learn the basics of real estate investing. Don't rely on other people per se. In other words, yes, have mentors, but educate yourself along the way. I want you to focus on topics such as market analysis, financing options, property management, tax benefits, so on and so forth. There's so many great resources. In fact, we're going to give you one or two resources here from Mike, his book and his podcast, that you can learn more from here shortly. Number three is, what's your entry strategy? Are you going to buy and hold? Okay. Are you going to house hack? In other words, you're going to buy a multifamily unit, live in one of the units, and rent out the others to offset your mortgage. There's REITs, which are real estate investment trusts. These REITs offer you an ability to invest with more of a hands-off approach. So there's another option for you. Number four is, you got to build your financial foundation. So that means save. Typically, you're going to need about 20% investment on properties. Make sure your credit score is good. Improve it if necessary. And if you can, get pre-approved for a loan to understand what your borrowing capacity is. I'll take a quick step back here when I talked about saving for down payment. You should already have your financial plan in place of how to save more money this year, looking at your discretionary expenses and what really is necessary and isn't necessary. Now, discretionary means it's not like, if I'm not going to pay my mortgage or my rent, because you need a place to live, but how many subscriptions to streaming services do you need? Listen, every little bit makes a difference. If you cut out 3 subscriptions that cost you $150 a month, guys, that's $2,000 a year of additional savings. And there's so many opportunities within your life to increase your savings markedly. And here's the thing: how committed and how fast do you want to be able to get into the game? The faster you want, a few more sacrifices you'll need to make right up front. Now, number 5 is market research, right? Look in the areas that you are looking to invest in. Are there strong job growth opportunities? Is the population growing? Is the housing affordable? And then you can look for properties in neighborhoods with rising demands, but reasonable prices. Number 6, always start small. Perhaps begin with a single family home or a duplex or a condo. You see, the smaller investments are easier to manage and are less risky for you, the beginner. Number 7 is run your numbers. Any good entrepreneur knows their numbers. And in real estate, you want to use what's called the 1% rule. That is, your monthly rent should equate to 1% of the purchase price. So as a guideline, if you buy your first property, it's $500,000, that property should be kicking off at least $5,000 a month of rental income. Number 8, build a team. You want to partner with really smart people. I've been involved in real estate for 30 something years, and virtually every deal I've done, I have been involved in partnerships, and most of them are absolutely exceptional. One wasn't so great, but I learned from it, right? And again, I didn't get hurt too bad, but vet your partners. Do you bring something unique and different to your partnership than your partner does? If you're both bringing the same skill sets, one of you is irrelevant. So diversify your partnership with different expertise and abilities that makes the partnership stronger. Number 9 is be patient and persistence. Look, Mike's going to tell you that the real estate game is the long game. So don't be looking for the quick hitter, the best deal in the universe. Those usually turn out to be the worst kinds of deals. And number 10, I want you to think about leveraging equity to expand. Once your first property appreciates in value and you've got additional equity, considering to use that equity to finance your next investment so you can begin to scale your investment portfolio. Okay, so now you've got 10 simple recommendations for you, the beginner, to get involved in real estate. I've got some great resources. Mike has some great resources in my interview. You're going to love Mike. You're going to learn an awful lot. So sit back, relax, enjoy this interview with Mike Morawski. Hey, Triple P Nation, welcome back. This week, my guest, as I mentioned, is Mike Morawski. Really excited to have Mike on the podcast. I met Mike about 2 months ago at a convention that we were both attending. And Mike is a managing partner of Resilience Equity and founder of My Core Intentions. He's also the author of Exit Plan and his most recent book, Multifamily Investment Secrets, how to guide you to explosive wealth in multifamily real estate. And he also has a podcast. In fact, he has 2, Insider Secrets and Multifamily Unplugged. So as you can tell, Mike's an incredibly interesting guy, and you're going to learn he's got a very incredible story of redemption, overcoming adversity, and let's say, Mike, a significant adversity. So welcome to the podcast, Mike.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate you having me. I've been looking forward to getting on with you. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. So, let's, when my opening kind of let the cat out of the bag. So you talk about your story of restoration. You mentioned to me that in 2005, you grew this company significantly, and then the business failed. You learned 5 things. And then in 2009, you had, let's just say, a life-altering experiencing. Let's start with that, Mike.
Okay. Yeah. So, my history, I've been in the real estate space for over 30 years. I guess I'm dating myself, right? So, I'm not 29 anymore. So, I started out, I had a general contracting business building room additions and burned out, wound up going into the residential real estate business. And I learned a long time ago that if you want to be successful, follow successful people. And I found a real estate agent who was extremely successful at the time. Went to him. He taught me his systems and his techniques, and I verbatim did everything that he did. My first 9 months in the business, I went out and I sold 78 houses. Built a team selling 125 homes a year. In 2005, and I did that for about 13 years. In 2005, I saw the market starting to shift. And I knew that if I didn't do something different, I would have to fire people that worked for me, and that my business would slow down, and I didn't want to be in that position. So I had always wanted to go into the apartment business. I didn't just wake up one morning and say, hey, let's start a private equity company, let's raise some capital. But I had done a lot of work for a couple of large multifamily syndicators over the years. When I was in the construction business, did a lot of work on apartments for Sam Zell's old company, Equity Residential, for Inland Real Estate. And Jay, I understood the model. You raise private equity from individuals, you marry it with a great real estate deal, and then you stay in the middle. And as long as everything goes well, everybody profits from it. Um, so I grew $100 million company over a 30-month period. And what I always tell people is I say, I went from residential into the apartment business, syndicated my first deal that went really well, and from there just grew. We raised $18 million. We bought 4,000 apartments in 5 markets, built a property management company managing 7,500 units over a 30-month period. And, one of the first mistakes I made was we grew way too fast. There was no stability in what we did. Everything we built was rush, based on a vision. I thought I had a back end team that was stabilizing and handling construction, and that wasn't happening. So that was the first problem. Second problem was I owned $60 million worth of real estate, and I was over leveraged at 85% loan to value. And, in my coaching program today, I teach people that you need to be at 65% loan to value in order to have that equity tranche in your capital stack to give you that added security and protection if the market shifts. And that's what happened in 2008. The market shifted. We went into the worst economic downfall the country's ever seen, and we started to unravel at a rapid rate. I had 38 different projects, 38 different companies at that time going on, and I probably had a dozen of them that I should have let go to foreclosure and let those investors get hurt as a result of it. But I didn't want anybody to get hurt. So I thought, well, this is just a recession. I've been in these downturns before. They typically last 17 or 18 months. There's a 10 or 12% correction in the market. Things bounce back rapidly. But that didn't happen in 2008. 2008 lasted 7 or 8 years with a 45% correction in the market. It's a tough storm to weather. So I thought, how do I save everybody? And what I did was I started to move money from my profitable companies to my non-profitable companies, thinking I could keep the ship afloat. My accountant and my attorney both said it's okay to do that, just leave a paper trail. But I didn't, what happened was I didn't disclose it to my investors. So for non-disclosure, I wound up being charged on wire fraud and mail fraud charges and got sentenced to 10 years in federal prison. And we, got wiped out, lost everything at that point. And I always tell people, I say, hey, I never flew private. I didn't have a boat. I didn't have a big house. I didn't drive a fancy car. I was the neighborhood baseball coach, home every night for dinner. And I got ripped from that lifestyle to live in a 12 by 12 room with 3 men I didn't know, nor did I like, wondering what the hell happened to my life.
Man, there's so much there.
I figured you might want to unpack a little bit of that,
Wow. Okay, so let me just step back on some of the notes that I had taken as you were speaking. The first thing that struck me when you said, you talked about successful systems and techniques, building a winning team, and following successful people, which are 3 of the 7 business pillars of success that, I teach my people. So it's interesting and fascinating to hear. And I know this stuff, but I just want to reiterate to my audience, Triple P Nation, that, the formula of success, is supersedes anything else and applies to any business in any industry. So thanks for confirming that. And I love the fact you talked about following successful people, mentoring what they do, learn from them, because you can expedite your success rapidly if you're humble enough to learn and to apply and put it into place. And that's been a part of my success moving forward as well, too.
Yeah.
But, the story in regards to how quickly you grew is really quite fascinating. You said you raised 18 million, if I recall.
Right.
Yeah. And so your loan to value, yes, 85% is definitely over leveraged. And so what would you have done differently? Would you have just make sure you maintain the current 65% that you're recommending in loan to value to not get yourself over leveraged to the point where in the event of a market downturn, which occurred, you can't predict that. You can't predict how long that recession is going to last. Yes, there's a typical average in which recessions typically begin to turn around, but that was the housing bust, in 2008, 2009, due to um, the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac issues and mortgage-backed securities and so on and so forth. And then we had, an administration who felt that, 1% GDP was acceptable for 8 years, which you and I both know, right? There's no growth there. You're barely even keeping up. So, long question, winding question is that if you would have maintained the recommendation of 65% loan to value, would you have been able to weather that storm?
Well, Jay, I think it was more than just those two issues. First of all, I didn't pay attention to the details. I had a partner that I thought was handling all of the operations and details. When we were small, he was able to handle that, but it grew very rapidly and kind of got out of control. But I didn't know that because I didn't pay attention to the details. We grew way too fast. If I had it to do again, which I do, and I am, and I'll get to that redemption piece, but um, it's slow growth. Take your time. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I grew $100 million company in 30 months. I'm an overachiever, right? And so I was focused on the big picture, the final end, but I didn't take it caution to what was happening in between. So yes, one of the things was, they were giving money away at 80%, 85% loan to value back then, even 100% in the residential market, 125% in the residential market. You can't sustain at those numbers. So I always tell people, hey, be 65% loan to value. That gives you that equity tranche that if there is a problem, there's money in the deal, even if the valuation of the property comes down. And that's one of the things that happened was the valuations came down from, 100% to 40%, 45%. And that was an issue. The third problem was I was undercapitalized to grow the company at the rate I was growing it at. I had 100 employees, and you can't sustain that payroll when your cash flow dries up. So those four issues were the major problems along the way. And really, in short, to answer your question, different leverage, grow fast or grow slower, and pay more attention to the details will sustain the growth.
Okay. So when you say being undercapitalized, could you have gone back to PE and looked to get more capital? And would that potentially have averted the disaster that inevitably occurred, or would that just have created more issues for you?
Well, would have put a band-aid on the situation, but here I thought I was really smart back then. And so all of our operating documents, we wanted to raise money. And so we took the capital call provision out of all of our operating documents and told investors that we would never have a capital call. Which today I don't do that and would never do that again, right? Because that was a problem. Because if you ever do need a capital call, you have to be able to go back to your investors and say, hey, we're challenged. Here's what's going on. You need to put more capital in. So, yeah, that was, we thought at the time it was a good idea because the market was just like on this trajectory, not thinking about where it was going to top tick or come over the top.
Makes sense. So in that situation with your investors, and I know you pre-qualify your investors now, um, in the event now that you had to do a capital call, an investor could not come up with the proportional amount based on their percentage of shares. What happens then?
Yeah. So, there's provisions in the offering documents for that, right? That if an investor doesn't come up with capital on a capital call, that they, give up some of their position, which gets afforded to other investors who put capital in. It becomes a give and take kind of situation. It all depends. Every deal could be different on those provisions built in there. But when you don't have the capital, you've got to go find it somewhere, whether it's a bridge loan, hard money, go back to the bank, renegotiate with the bank on interest terms or payment terms, trying to, stabilize for a period of time, right? And a lot of times it's operations. Here's one of the big things that happened back then. Um, we were focused on markets that were easy entry to get into, but part of the problems in those markets were employment diversification. And today I'm a big market-driven investor. So yeah, I have to have good population growth, good job growth, good household income, but I need to have multiple employers in a market. I owned 1,800 units back then in the Ohio Valley. And in the Ohio Valley, you have two major employers. You've got transportation, so you had DHL, UPS, and small manufacturing companies that made parts for the automobile industry, knobs for the radios, dashboards, rear view mirrors, things like that. Well, when the automobile industry got hit after the housing market got hit, all those small businesses went out of business. So the people that lived in our apartments moved out. They couldn't pay their bills anymore. I remember getting a call from a property manager one morning, Monday morning, in tears, that she had 32 moving trucks in the parking lot and didn't have a scheduled move out for 45 days. You know, you just can't weather those storms like that when that happens. So it was an unprecedented time for people, and recovery from it took a long time.
It's a great point that you make. And the work that we do, we have a whole team that does an analysis in a marketplace before we make a decision whether to invest in that marketplace. And certainly, employment rates, the variety of employers that are in a marketplace, as you had mentioned, if there's a dominant employer, the dominant, 60%, 70% of all employment comes from this particular company, it's great going in, but it's a highly risky proposition, in the event like you just mentioned. So do you do that assessment analysis now, and recommend that when someone is considering investing in a specific marketplace, let's say it's outside their home territory that they're not familiar with, and are there services that do that for people in advance so they can have a more comprehensive assessment of what a marketplace would look like before they make an investment?
Yeah, great question. So we have a couple of underwriters, and those underwriters know the markets that we watch. We monitor about 40 submarkets right now, and we watch some of the trends. What is the data telling us about moving forward? Whether that data is coming from Real Analytics or CoStar, or some of the major data analytical companies in the country. We want to see where the market's headed over the next, 4 to 8 quarters, before we look at a deal in that market. But we have pinpointed probably 40 markets that we like because of growth that's happened and future growth that's, expected to happen. And I believe, Jay, today that we're in a great transition period. I think we're going to see a huge transfer of wealth in this country over the next few years, because as real estate is cyclical. There's no geniuses in this business, Jay. It's only market cycles. And we're in the bottom part of that market cycle right now, where times are tough, and we're going to come out. And we're starting to come out now, but I think that we're going to have the next 12 to 14, 16 months of slow growth. And then all of a sudden we're going to hit that hockey stick and come up. And, the markets that we like today are some of the leaders that I believe are going to come out of this market. And they're not your typical Dallases and Austin, Texas that have been really robust the last few years. They're markets like Tulsa, Oklahoma and Knoxville, Tennessee, markets that the smart money's maybe not even really looking at right now out there.
I would agree with that. It's an interesting story when you were talking about we're invested quite heavily in one of our projects in a marketplace where it's healthcare dominated, and and two of the local hospitals closed within a month of each other. Fortunate enough, there's enough employment diversification where the hit wasn't too significant, but it definitely had an impact. And even in our own assessment analysis, from a risk standpoint, it was not a high risk, but it was a risk because it was the healthcare marketplace was the dominant employer. But from a percentage standpoint, it wasn't overwhelmingly where there wasn't other industries that could make up for the shortfall. So that's a great point you bring up where new investors are getting involved in real estate don't take into consideration, So I'm really glad that you shared that. Let me ask you this, because I know a lot of people reach out to me and ask me, they want to get involved, they want to invest in real estate. And they say, well, how much capital do I need in a deal, where a bank will approve? And my answer always is, well, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But from a general rule of thumb, from your experience, if someone's looking to get into rental real estate market from a capital standpoint, what do you suggest and recommend they would need as far as a percent in on any deal?
Well, let me ask you this: Are you referring to the passive investor or the active investor? I think you're talking
passive
investor. So,
Yeah.
it depends. We put out there a couple of deal structures, a 506B that we will talk to non-accredited investors about. That's typically a lower barrier to entry for them. Because my philosophy is, how do I help somebody who is non-accredited become accredited? But then the 506C deals that we roll out, generally, we might be raising 2 million or 5 million on a particular offering. And, the barrier to entry might be $50,000 to $100,000. We don't do portfolios, but we have individual projects. So those investors are invested in that individual asset.
Got it. That makes total sense. You mentioned about the 5 things that caused, the fail that I experienced. And if I'm not sure if I missed one, you talked about growing too fast, over leverage, undercapitalization, didn't pay attention to details. What was the 5th one?
Yeah, the 5th one is I didn't listen to important people around me. And, I'll just tell a quick story and kind of lead into the redemption piece of what happened over that, 7.5 years in prison. So I was in prison for about 3 weeks, and my wife served me divorce papers, and it kind of like wrecked me. I never didn't think it was going to happen. And looking back today, of course I knew it was going to happen. I was just in denial on it. But here's the problem. I never talked to my wife about business. And I think, and really I want the guys to listen to this right now, because I think that we need to tell our spouse. Sometimes they see things that we miss. And in 2008, I was trying to close a real estate deal and sitting in a title company in Cincinnati, Ohio, waiting for my office to wire over $500,000. And the wire wasn't coming and not coming, and finally couldn't get a hold of anybody at my office. And at the end of the day, my partner calls me and he says, "Hey, I don't know how to tell you this." I said, "Tell me what? I'm trying to close a deal here." He said, "I had to move $500,000 from an escrow account, put it in the operating account." And I said, man, I told you never do that, that's the number one rule of this business. You don't use other people's money for other stuff. And he said, I thought I could have the money back. And so that was on a Wednesday. Wound up dry closing on that. I went back to the office over the weekend. I sold his interest off to some new investors so that we could, balance the books on it and get the deal closed and funded, early the following week. But the point is that was on Wednesday. On Friday night that week, my wife and I went to dinner with my ex-partner and his wife. And on the way home that night, she said to me, I don't trust him. And, I thought I'm going to be a good husband at this point. And I say, hey, honey, don't worry. I have this under control. So that she felt secure, right? Wrong answer. The answer should have been, tell me more. What are you seeing that I miss? So that's one situation. Fast forward 5 days, I'm out to lunch with my attorney. And we had an inside legal counsel and outside counsel. And I'm to lunch with my outside legal counsel. And he says to me, after lunch, he goes, look, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm seeing some things with your partner that I don't like and I don't trust. And I go, Bob, don't worry about it. I have this under control. So twice within a 5-day period, people are telling me they see things that I'm missing. And instead of saying, tell me more, what are you seeing that I'm missing? I'm saying, don't worry, I have this under control. And Jay, I didn't have anything under control at that point. And that's where we kind of started to lose control even more. But, when I got those divorce papers in prison, I started to realize these things. And, I really didn't know how I was going to get through a 10-year prison term, much less one day at a time. And I was in about 6 weeks. And while I was in about around the 6th week, I walk into the gym one day. And I always tell people, Jay, I say, hey, I was just window shopping. I wasn't looking to start working out. I'd gone from running marathons to being 35 pounds overweight. I hated myself. Probably would have killed myself, but, didn't have the courage to. And this guy walks up to me and he says, hey, don't let these people beat you. All they ever want to do is take from you everything you've ever known. They can destroy your business. They can, destroy your family, but they can't take who you are and what you're made of. They can't take your knowledge. He goes, come to my class every day, start working out. You'll start losing weight. You'll start feeling better. And I don't know what it was, Jay, but it was a defining moment. And it was like somebody flipped a light switch and I went, okay. And I started going to his class. I started working out. I did lose weight. I did start feeling better. I wound up writing 2 books in prison, one on multifamily investing called Exit Plan, one on property management. I wrote an ethics course. I taught real estate investing, property management, and ethics in prison for 6 years. I was on an outreach program. I went into the community. I told my story to small business owners and college students. I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree in theology. I wound up writing a paper with a professor from the University of Minnesota that we had co-authored and published in the Business Journal of Ethics that gets taught today at the collegiate level for forensic accounting and sales and marketing classes. So Jay, I thought, when I go home, I'm going to go into coaching and training business, which I did. And my first couple of coaching clients, I figured I'm going to have to teach them how to underwrite again. So I pulled out my old tools, started underwriting deals. Well, I find a deal in Florida to buy. And I go to these coaching clients and I say, I think we should partner on this. And we wind up buying this property in Florida. But along the way, my securities attorney got me approved by the SEC to go back and be an issuer of securities and a sponsor of deals again. And that's something that's unheard of, right? That doesn't happen every day to people. But my interview with them and the changes that I had made and the growth that has transpired, they said that, they gave me a written approval that I can go back and do this. So today I'm back full blown in the capital raising business. I teach people how to build their multifamily portfolio and syndications, raise capital and do deals, and wind up doing deals with my coaching students.
So does your record affect, or doesn't sound like it has, it doesn't impact your ability to invest and so forth? And the second part of that question, do you divulge that information to new investors as they come on your past history? Because I would assume any
Yeah.
smart investor is going to do their research on their own. I'm sure that may come up on the internet.
Yeah, it does come up on the internet, and I don't try to hide it. I'm very transparent. I talk publicly. I try to get on as many live stages as I can on an annual basis and tell the story, because I want people to understand that you don't have to let your past define your future. I think a lot of people are trapped in a mental place in their mind where something happened to them in the past. They had a failure, they had a divorce, they're trapped in addictions or past abuse, sexual or physical abuse. And people stay stuck, and you don't have to be stuck. And Jay, I love it because invariably, every time I tell my story live, somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, my brother just went to prison. Hey, I was thinking about making this decision in my business, and as a result of you talking about what happened, I've decided to go the other way. Thank you." And so, my goal is always, if I can touch one person in an event, or in a situation that helps them think differently from where they're at, then I've done my job.
It's fantastic stuff, Mike. It really is. So I want to dive a little further into your prison experience. You kind of glossed over it. You almost made it sound like, and I know you feel this way, you're grateful for the experience because you're a different man because of it. And I totally get
Right.
that. Totally get it. But man, I could not conceptualize, losing freedom for 7 years and keeping my sanity. And so you must
Yeah.
have had some great resources. Was the gentleman that reached out to you, was he another inmate, or was he somebody who worked at the prison who saw something in you and decided to mentor you? How did that come about?
Yeah, it was another inmate, um, who had been in for a while, a younger guy. He taught this class in the gym, a pretty intense hit class, and just encouraged me to start working out. And funny story, Jay. About a year ago, he was on Facebook, and we've stayed in contact through Facebook, and he was on Facebook, and he had put a post out there about a bad day he was having. And I messaged him back and I said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember this or not, but you said this to me back when I was at my darkest point, and it changed my life." And the message I got back from him was, "Oh my God, I needed to hear that today. I forgot about that. That was so inspiring. Thank you." So, Jay, I look at it today like it's not what happens to us, it's what happens for us. And how do we take those experiences and reinvent our lives and help other people?
Yeah, that's such a powerful statement. I've always said that, I think the people who gain the most success and are able to live their purpose is they take their mess and they turn it into their message. And they become so passionate about helping other people to avoid the pitfalls and mistakes that they made, or to help in a redemption sort of way, to give them the tools and knowledge of how they overcame. And it's my story as well too, just different. The outcome's the same, the backstory's different. And as I'm sure you are, I feel incredibly blessed to be able to do what I do because of that. And it gives me purpose each and every day. It's funny, just the other day, I was with a bunch of guys. We were on a golf trip, and most of them either close to retired or retired. Like, why do you do what you do? And I'm like, and I just looked at him and said, because I have a big purpose. My purpose is to serve millions of people to live happier, healthier, more prosperous lives. And if I stop living that purpose, I don't care how well I've taken care of myself. I know I will decline so rapidly because I will lose that zest for life and constant growth. And I think the one message that you and I can share with Triple P Nation here is that never lose that zest. Keep striving to be better and to serve. And, how many years God gives you on this planet will be very fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
You know, Tell us a little bit about the multifamily investment secrets, because I'm sure my listeners are like, okay, give me a secret. What do I need to know? How can
Yeah.
I? Because a lot of people here they are. It's the last quarter of the year, and they're thinking, okay, I want to set some financial goals. As you know, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and they're looking to create other streams of revenue. They don't know how to get started. So first of all, I'm going to recommend you go out and get Mike's book. And where can they get their book, Mike? I know on Amazon, right?
Yeah, you could go to Amazon or you could go to multifamilyinvestmentsecrets.com and grab a copy there. Multifamilyinvestmentsecrets.com. But Jay, in my book, I talk about that. I talk about goal setting and business planning. I talk about your vision and your why. But then I talk about all the fundamentals, right? Everything from building a buying strategy based on what you want to accomplish, how to choose the right markets, how to underwrite, how to do due diligence, how to fund a deal. I talk a lot about creative financing in here. And over the years, I've bought in 4-unit, 60-unit, 400-unit apartment complexes with little and no money down, because the strategies work. Whether you're doing a single family or multifamily, the strategies work. Just to toot my horn a little bit, 7-time bestseller on Amazon, and it's a great book for somebody who's looking to get in the business, to grow their business to the next level. There's a lot of tips and techniques, and I always say, from a seminar, from a book, from a podcast, if you can walk away with one new idea, one thought that helps you kind of grow personally and professionally, then that idea was worth grabbing a hold of.
So, Mike, I've never invested in single family homes other than my own personal home. I've always done multifamily investments.
Good for you.
Again, people, yeah. So, right. I just think more doors, the better, right? But
Right.
if someone is, looking the difference between single and multifamily, what would what would your recommendations be, and why would one be better than the other?
Yeah, huge. Economies of scale is huge, Jay. I always tell people, I say, just look at this. At one point in my career, I owned 200 single family houses. I had 200 furnaces, 200 hot water heaters, 200 roofs, 200 bad driveways, tenants that didn't pay. But if I own a 200-unit apartment complex, I maybe have 5 roofs, 5 furnaces, 5 hot water heaters, right? My economies of scale is less. My costs are less. But one of the big factors is if I have a single family house that nobody's living in and I have to pay that mortgage out of my pocket every month, that becomes painful after a couple of months of being not being occupied or being doing the rehab. But if I have a, a apartment complex and I'm 10, 20% vacant, I can still pay my mortgage, right? And it's not coming out of my pocket. So that's a huge factor. Plus, you can scale a business a lot faster when you are either passively or actively invested in those larger complexes.
Makes a ton of sense. Yeah, I'm glad that you clarified that, because I 100% agree with that, and it just gives you a lot more flexibility, and of course, as you talked about the economy of scale, your ability to generate cash flow is certainly better in a multifamily unit. So, Mike, this has been really a very fascinating and interesting interview. I was looking forward to this. Again, I didn't know the backstory to this extent, so it's made it even more fascinating. And I want to thank you for being vulnerable and sharing, which I can only imagine initially was something you felt shameful about. Maybe you didn't. but now you've taken it and allowed it to be a part of your superpowers that helps you serve other people in a more meaningful and impactful way. So I want to give you thanks and props for that.
Thanks, Jay. I appreciate that. And yes, I did feel shameful about it and regret what happened, but the lessons learned were huger.
Yeah, fantastic. So Triple P Nation, make sure you go out and get Mike's book, Multifamily Investment Secrets, How to Guide You to Explosive Wealth in Multifamily Real Estate. Mike, talk about your podcasts. Where can they find those if they want to learn more and follow you on social media?
Yeah. So podcast, you can go to Apple, Spotify, any of the platforms out there and find Insider Secrets. On Saturday morning, we go do a video podcast on Saturday mornings called Multifamily Unplugged. Like you, Jay, with your podcast, I'm always trying to bring some intriguing guests, somebody that knows a little bit more than me and is smarter than me and can bring some good content to the listeners to learn from, whether they're active or passive investors. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking forward to being on shortly with you. And thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having you on as well. So, because it sounds like you have a backstory we need to hear about.
Don't we all? All right. So thanks again, Mike, for being on. I wish you nothing but health and happiness into the new year and success. And again, Triple P Nation, so much to learn from Mike's story, and more important, to learn from his knowledge and his wisdom as you want to take your financial, we talk about empowering dreams, igniting passion, accelerating prosperity. Real estate's a great way to accelerate your prosperity. So check out Mike's book because you can get some great insight on how to do that for you and your family. So once again, Mike, thanks so much. And Triple P Nation, as I always say, you be you, just be the best you, and you will always empower your dreams, ignite your passion, and accelerate your prosperity. Until next week, be well.